Hey guys, what is up? It is me, Pagey, here once again with another video on just all the shenanigans and drama going over on at the CW. But more importantly, the fate of a show like Superman and Lois going forward, not obviously into the next few months, even though we might hear stuff over the next few months, but after season 3, leading into season 4, comma, if there is a season 4. It's very confusing what's happening because stuff that we're hearing now is sort of contradicting stuff we heard, I don't know, like a couple of months ago and stuff like that in regards to feeling safe about certain shows. Now, nothing feels safe. It's a really confusing time, and I'm not too sure what to think because this current news that just came out or recently came out over the past couple of days just seems to contradict what came before. So there was a few pieces of news that came out over the past couple of days, specifically about the new hierarchy. Whenever you say that word, you think of The Rock now. But anyway, of the new structure and hierarchy of the CW in different departments, but more importantly, focusing on content, which is obviously a big part of the CW, seeing that's a TV network. So we're going to go over a few of these. And it's pretty interesting how one leads into the other, which leads into the other, which leads into the other. It's like magic that it came out this way. But of course, let me know your opinions in the comment section down below. And I guess just your predictions in regards to what's going to happen. I'll give mine throughout it. And obviously, I have no idea what's going to happen because, as I said, this stuff that came out now seems to contradict what came out, not too long ago. But I'll just give my best analysis and prediction of it as I can. The first article here is from Deadline. I think 3 of the 4 we're going to go over here from Deadline, just because they usually, structure it in a pretty decent way. And as you can read from the headline, the CW shakeup, programming boss search heats up with candidates including Brad Swartz after layoff. Now, Brad Swartz is a name that will come up in the article, but we'll go over him later. And he's actually an interesting character just because he could be a good guy in this situation, but then also he could just be a pawn in the higher ups decision making. It's hard to tell. But as Deadline does say, the new iteration of the CW is starting to take shape. And of course, Nexter hasn't recently taken over the past week or so, like we've seen with the DC situation with James Gunn and stuff coming in over the past couple of days. They've been in there for a few months, as they do say here. But it takes time to, make your moves and get everything in order before you just, get rid, push people out the building and everything like that. But as it does say there, the new owners are starting to make moves that will determine its programming mix and who will be leading this charge. Chief among these include the search for a top program executive, a retooling of its scripted lineup, and a drive to greenlight more unscripted formats, which we knew was coming. Unscripted means cheap, pretty much. And in regards to its scripted lineup, we knew that they were pretty envious of getting international acquired things, which they've already started doing. Like they got a South African show, a couple of Canadian shows, they got an Australian show on there. So there's a couple of different things they've acquired already, which was technically by the old guard of the CW, but it might have just been because this is what Nexstar wanted to do, so they got the heads up and just pushed into that direction. And this is coming after there's been this big layoff. I think there was 30 employees, I think it was, that got laid off from the CW. I think this came out around the same time, but I don't think I have an article specifically about it. But I think it was about 30 of the 30 full-time employees got cut. And the CW wouldn't have a massive thing in its central hub. So that's a lot of people. But as it does say there, it includes the head execs of streaming and branding, advertising, and communications, which are pretty central parts in regards to, promoting and advertising and publicity, which gives you a bit of a worry that that's going to be cut down on going forward on the CW with the shows that are still on there. And that's been an issue over the past couple of years, pretty much around that COVID time in regards to promoting shows well, those posters that would normally come out, trailers. If you think about the shows that have come out, there's a month until the show comes out. Usually you get a trailer about a month before the show premieres, and then one about 2 weeks before, and then some little ones in the week leading up to it. Now you're lucky if you get 2. Usually get one about a month or 2 weeks out from a show premiering. So that was something that was already being cut back on, and now they've replaced all these people, and it seems like they're not going to replace them all individually. It's going to be one role pretty much, and I don't think they're going to fill that gap pretty well, if at all. Now, the CW is expected to aggressively increase its footprint in unscripted content. As we said before, it pretty much means cheap. And it is long-aired series such as Penn and Teller, World's Funniest Animals, and Whose Line Is Anyway. I mean, World's Funniest Animals, I think, has only been on for a couple of years. Whose Line Is It Anyway is a show from I mean, the early 2000s, 90s, and this is just like a modern version of it. So they've done it before, but it was always on the minority side of the content. And they usually had much, 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 much more scripted content than unscripted. But it seems like the CW and its new brass and new guard is going to flip the script there. So instead of it being, 20 to 30% unscripted, it's going to be like 70, 80, maybe even 90, which is a lot, obviously. But a lot of the people that they've brought in already are people that specialize or have histories with this type of content, not necessarily the stuff that's already on the CW, but with similar type unscripted format content on other networks or other things like that. Now, the hits to scripted content kept on coming pretty much on the exact same day that our other information came out when we had this. Now, as you can see, it does say the Winchesters and Walker Independents get no back orders as the CW cutbacks continue. No decision on season 2s yet. So they haven't been cancelled, but they haven't got back orders. So you might be wondering, what's a back order? A back order is pretty much just extra episode added onto it. So a new show coming in, usually has 13 episodes, and then they give it a back order. Sometimes it's 3, sometimes it's 5, sometimes it's 10. Back in the day, it used to be 10. You'd go from 13 episodes up to 23. Of late, the max you'd normally get in a back order would be maybe 5. And it does happen with older shows. It happened with Flash last season. Flash was originally 18. They gave it an extra 2. Riverdale got an extra good amount as well last season. So it does happen with older shows as well. But normally you see back orders for newer shows. And even technically with the older shows, just adding an episode or 2. But this one usually used to be like 10 episodes sometimes. But as Deadline does include, they hear the same would apply, there's no back order to all CW freshman series, and that the network's head, or new head, Dennis Miller, has stressed to producers and talent that no decisions about next season have been made, indicating that the lack of back orders does not mean cancellation. So though they got told, by the way, we're not adding on any extra episodes, it doesn't mean you're cancelled. Now, the Winchesters and Walker Independents are both prequels of very popular franchises within the CW library, of course, Walker Independence being a prequel of Walker, and the Winchesters being a prequel of the now ended Supernatural. Now, the normal Walker still airs, so having both of them on air is a pretty good thing to have. It's sort of like when the Arrowverse was on, that's why those shows it helped getting them renewed all the time, because they were all on that one big family. But as Deadline once again does stress, this decision does further underline Nexstar's push to cut costs, including moving toward more unscripted, aka cheaper content, or cheaper scripted content as well, like acquiring international things. And that for scripted series that were there at the beginning of the year, and also when Nexstar acquired them, are ending this season. That being The Flash, Riverdale, Nancy Drew, and Stargirl. Nancy Drew and Stargirl being 2 shows that were technically cancelled, though it seems like they've both got proper endings in store when they do wrap up. So it's not like a Batwoman or Legends type situation. But as I say, the list is expected to grow as the season does progress. And it just makes you wonder which shows. Are they the new shows that are going to be in trouble? Or was it the already existing shows that haven't had any sort of ending labeled out, like Flash and Riverdale and Nancy Drew and Stargirl? It's a big question mark. And that is when this article decided to come out. The CW floats $1 million an episode license fee for drama series as studios wait for clarity on new business model. Now, you might be wondering, okay, well, what does that mean? Well, a license fee is what the CW as a network pays to someone like Warner Brothers or now Paramount to use the characters and the content and stuff like that. So you're paying that amount, saying, hey, we can use all this. And this is the type of news which puts a show like Superman and Lois and even a show like Gotham Knights in pretty dangerous territory, and Deadline does put it pretty well. So we'll just read what they have to say. Not counting the series that are officially ending this season, the oldest scripted series on air at the CW is Flagship All American, currently in its 5th season. All other shows are 3 years old or younger. That is significant, as series tend to get more expensive as they age because they grow worth, which means the license fee grows. And as part of the cost-cutting efforts from Nexstar, the executives from Nexstar have been looking to restructure the agreements with the CW's current scripted, series suppliers, that being CBS Studios or Paramount and Warner Brothers Television, floating a target license fee for drama series of $1 million per episode going forward. That is significantly lower than the current license fees the CW pays for drama, for its dramas, which I hear range from low to mid $1 million to high $1 million, close to $2 million an episode. They hear that the CW had previously employed $1 million an episode fee years ago, but the network had to step up as production costs started going up and competition for talent drove the actor prices up. It's very important to remember a lot of these actors that are on the CW are very popular within the younger generation. So they're touted for like some of those movies that appeal to that younger generation, whether it's Netflix movies or some of those movies that come out in cinemas that are, projected towards teenagers and young adults and stuff like that. This is where it gets interesting because you start to get some outside sources sort of chiming in. And Deadline hears that the idea has been met with resistance, with sources telling Deadline that it is not feasible to produce an hour-long series at that license fee, taking on additional deficit under the current model of the CW getting first run, and the studios trying to find domestic, off-network, and international buyers. It is challenging, one industry source said. Another observer noted that the new regime's drive for cheaper, broader programming with an emphasis on reality could push down the value of a CW scripted series internationally, making them even more difficult to monetize. Where it was the network of DC and interesting dramedies and young adult fare, now it is going to be lower cost, alternative shows with no brand that makes sense. So if you are selling a show internationally, the buyers will be far less interested in paying much for the shows. And this is sort of what I was saying before. Hey, have the Walker and Walker Independence, a bit of a family there with the Winchesters. It's a prequel to Supernatural. And then you had all the Arrowverse stuff and even some of the DC stuff that wasn't directly connected straight out of the gate. It creates like it's like an MCU thing. Use the MCU for example. You could have some random ass Marvel movie comes out that doesn't look interesting at all, and it's something like it's disconnected as well for the most part. It doesn't have Iron Man flying through the sky and going, "What's going on?" But it's connected to that. It has that brand appeal to it, so people are going to spend money on it. Whether it is advertisers to put something on there or just the common consumer as well, or even like a cinema to put certain amount of screens showing that movie. What the CW is doing at the moment, it's almost like it's designed by someone that doesn't understand the brand aspect of network TV, which I guess is fair enough because on a lot of other networks, you sometimes don't see that. But then again, you think back, well, you have the CSIs, you have your NCISs, you have your 911s, you have your like what's that, like the Chicago shows, whatever they call the Chicago Med and Chicago Police or whatever they're called. You have all those shows as well. So other networks have those brands there that allow them to create those shows, which allow them to sell them internationally to certain stations and international markets. Because if one market in, say, the United Kingdom has one show, let's say it's NCIS, they're going to get all of them. They're going to get all of them. They're going to bring all of them in, which just creates a constant flow of cash for the people that make that show back in America. But the CW is setting that stuff up now where it's almost non-existent, especially if you see shows like Winchester's go away, Walker go away, and it comes in with all this random international stuff. Who's going to buy it? Or at least put any sort of decent money into it? An idiot. Like no one would. No one would. And also, if that was the case, wouldn't you just buy it from the original person, like the original production company from overseas that made it? Wouldn't that be cheaper? It's confusing what they're doing. But here's the interesting thing. So this more applies to a show that we haven't even really mentioned yet, and that's something like Just This Year, which we heard about a month ago? About a month ago or something like that from David Ramsey that they were still in like getting the pilot script ready and all that. And this is what Deadline says. So they say, we hear some of the projects bought over the summer remain in development while others have been rolled. It's unclear yet whether the CW will go through a normal cycle and order pilots or switch to a less expensive development model that involves straight-to-series orders and/or international co-productions. With the network looking to reduce its scripted footprint and increase unscripted fare, its needs for new scripted series for 23-24 season are not going to be big as previous years. They've been increasing conversations about Canadian content and co-financing. One industry insider said they've done it before the CW with the Canadian acquisitions, but I think it's more co-financing now versus just straight up acquisition, which is interesting and different. Now, co-financing is a very interesting thing that I do wonder could present itself, which might save shows. Now, I don't want to talk about it too much because it's a big step just based off how much the CW wants to put forward themselves, and also how much someone like Warner Brothers Television or Paramount also wants to keep that content around. Like on the Paramount side, it's like Walker and some other shows like that. But obviously on the Warner Brothers side, it's your Superman and Lois's, your Gotham Knights. I think they're Winchesters as well. I think so. I'm not too sure on top of my head, but shows like that. Co-financing would mean, obviously, as the name does suggest, that the CW chucks in some and the actual production company would as well. Now, the advantage to this maybe happening is that you got to remember after the shows end their seasons, so, Superman and Lois ended season 2 not too long ago, that complete season then goes to HBO Max, and the same happened with Paramount and a show like Walker. Those seasons go to their streaming services afterwards and provides content. Now with Superman and Lois, it's one of the more popular DC shows, if not just shows that go there straight after with a full season that people can sit down and binge. That might be something that the CW talks about if they want to keep a show like Superman and Lois in any future DC stuff around. Now that's a wait and find out. We don't even know what the CW's intentions are, or whether that's even possible, or even if Warner Brothers are on that side as well. So there's no point really putting too much faith in that, but it is a possibility. It's very important to remember that the CW, for example, co-financed the final, I think, 4 episodes, I think it was, of Stargirl season 1 once Mark Pedowitz was interested in it. So they co-financed those final 4 episodes. So though the majority of the season was just made and paid for and produced by Warner Brothers Television with on the DC Universe side, there was some CW co-financing for those final handful of episodes of season 1. So just keep that in mind with this stuff, that co-financing could be a thing, but also don't put too much faith in it because there has to be some sort of agreement there. And this is the final thing to go over. This is new CW Entertainment president, not producer, but president Brad Swartz outlines scrappy network approach under Nexstar. So he's the guy coming in, I guess, sort of replacing Mark Pedowitz for the most part. But it does say here, in his new role, Swartz will be charged with leading the CW's programming strategy, including the day-to-day operations as well as its creative and brand development. And he was the guy that brought Canadian comedy Schitt's Creek to the US, which obviously ended up being a big award winner going forward after it came in. But he does say we need to run a profitable broadcast network, and it's going to take a bit of reinvention and rethinking to create a brand with content that brings in a lot of audience that works for the stations and can be monetized properly. It's an interesting new challenge. It's a complete rethinking. All the other broadcast networks are profitable, so we have to think about how to make this one profitable. Now, it's very important to remember that the CW doesn't have a draw card thing that can make it a lot of money on like one event. You got to remember things like the Super Bowl, Oscars, and stuff. Those big events can bring in money that make a network profitable just off that one event. The CW, unfortunately, doesn't have that. It really just goes on a day by day by day, ad by ad basis. So it's a bit of a struggle for a network like the CW, especially when it was making so much original scripted content as well. And as it does say down here, actually up here, the CW was never designed to be a profitable venture, but rather as a profit vehicle for CBS Studios and Warner Brothers, both of whom made billions by selling international and streaming rights to such originals as The Flash and Nancy Drew. But with the emergence of their respective streamers, that being HBO Max and Paramount Plus, both studios opted to end its $1 billion output deal with Netflix, as well as keep international rights. And that's so all that content that they were making for the CW was then going to their own streaming services. Now, that can obviously be a double-edged sword because you get content on your streaming service, but you're not necessarily sure if it's making you that much money. Because are people subscribing to HBO Max to watch that content, or just so you're filling your library up? It depends. It depends with each individual product, everything like that. Like in some cases, it'd just be smarter to put something out to Netflix, but Netflix isn't just going to pick up one show. They want like an overall deal, which is why that lucrative deal back then was so good. Now, this is the interesting thing down here. I've just realized there's a bikini out here, so I'll be covering that up right now. Now, this is a very interesting little thing here. So Swartz, a self-professed CW fanboy who starts November 7th, has hope that the CW will continue to be a home for originals like Walker and Superman and Lois. Both shows, along with All American and its Homecoming spin-off, Kung Fu, Gotham Knights, Walker Independence, and Supernatural prequel The Winchesters, are all officially square on the bubble. I'm looking forward to meeting and talking about it all, Swartz says when asked what his message to current CW showrunners, writers, and producers who are eager to know what the future holds, which I would as well if I was in that position. I don't know the answers yet, but I'm looking forward to digging in. The CW is still a huge platform, one of 5. We'll have to be contrarian and think differently, but that shouldn't get in way of ambition. Now, he also had a quote, which I can't find here. It might have been an exclusive to another site, but he talked about how it was like a dream of his to work at the CW, and he loves what the CW is. But the important thing around that is that what it is now isn't what he loved, if that makes sense, in regards to how the network and the business is run. So I don't know why he even bothered saying that, because unless he's going to try and keep that in some way, then fair enough. But everything that's come out seems it's going the other way. But let's see, you got to give the guy a chance. You got to give the guy a chance. It's not like he's had a bad record before. So we won't know for like another 6 months, most likely. But all that stuff about, not giving back orders to shows, and those shows end fairly soon. Like in the, when you look at it compared to like a show like Superman Lois, which hasn't even started airing yet. A lot of those shows that haven't been given back orders have been airing for the past handful of, or the past like month or so, if not almost 2 months. So yeah, this whole situation is very interesting. And I think the bottom line of it all, if you just want to sum it up, it's don't get too far ahead of yourself, especially with something like Superman and Lois, because the licensing fees thing, it's Superman. It's Superman. Even Gotham Knights, they're still using Gotham City and even like a character there's like a Robin in the comics and stuff like that. So those license fees wouldn't be cheap either. And the CW wants to cut that down. So it's a weird time, and it's going to be very interesting to see how it goes forward, and also just what the CW as a brand is like in a year, because it could be completely different to the point where no one goes, I like watching the CW, because it won't be what it was not even like 5 years ago, like a year ago. It could be completely different landscape. And I think even for like the general people that make shows and stuff like that, it's just an avenue you wouldn't even go down anymore, just because it'd be so rocky and uncertain. But yeah, guys, thanks for watching. Hopefully you enjoyed the video. If you could, if you did, it'd be awesome if you could drop a like and show support. More importantly, let me know your opinions in the comment section down below. This video is probably a bit of a longer one, but yeah, let me know your thoughts down there. And of course, if you are new to the channel, make sure to subscribe, and I will catch you guys later. Goodbye.